Commander Vextar floated in his command chair as he looked at the strange object on his screen. The alien ship hung in space like a dead metal beast. Its hull was dark and full of holes that looked like battle damage had torn through it. The Calvarian scout fleet had been searching this empty part of space for 3 days, looking for anything worth taking back to their home world. The unknown vessel was huge, much bigger than any Calvarian ship Vextar had ever seen. It looked crude and rough-like. Someone had built it with hammers and bent metal instead of the smooth, flowing designs his people used. The ship had sharp angles and thick armor plating that made it look angry. Even while it floated dead in the black of space, Lieutenant Zal Keth ran his scanning equipment over the mystery ship again and again. His readings showed the same thing every time. No power signatures, no engine heat, no weapons charged and ready to fire. The vessel appeared completely lifeless, floating in space like a piece of junk that someone had thrown away after a terrible battle. But something bothered Zalketh about the readings. The ship was positioned in a very strange way. Most dead ships tumbled through space in random directions, pushed around by solar, winds and gravity from nearby stars. This ship hung perfectly still as if someone had placed it there on purpose. The young officer frowned at his instruments and ran the scans one more time. The other ships in Vextar's small fleet moved closer, to the mystery vessel. Their captains reported the same readings. No life, no power, no danger. The ship looked like easy salvage, something they could strip for valuable technology and materials. The Calvarian Empire had grown strong by taking the best ideas and inventions from other species they defeated or found floating dead in space. Captain Mordak of the cruiser Swiftblade spoke over the communication system. "Commander, this vessel shows signs of advanced construction methods. The hull, materials appear to be some kind of composite metal we have never seen before. If we can take samples back to our scientists, they might learn how to make our own ships stronger." Vextar nodded, his 4 eyes gleaming with excitement. The Empire always rewarded officers who brought back new technology. This strange ship could make him rich and famous if it contained secrets worth stealing. He ordered his 3 ships to form a triangle around the dead vessel with weapons ready just in case the thing was not as dead as it appeared to be. The mystery ship was covered in what looked like burn marks and holes from energy weapons. Someone had fought a fierce battle with this vessel, and apparently won. The damage was so severe that Vextar wondered how the ship had stayed in one piece. The hull should have cracked apart under that much punishment, but somehow it held together. As they moved closer, more details became visible. The ship had strange symbols painted on its side in a language none of the Calvarians could read. The symbols looked simple, almost primitive compared to the flowing script his people used. The ship also had numbers painted in white that seemed to identify it as some kind of military vessel. The scanning officer on Vextar's flagship reported something interesting. "Commander, I am detecting organic life signs inside the vessel. The readings are very faint, but there appear to be living creatures aboard. The biological signatures are unlike anything in our species database. These beings have a different body chemistry than any known intelligent species." This news made Vextar even more excited. Living aliens meant the possibility of learning new technologies directly from their creators. Even if these creatures were dying or badly injured, they might be able to share knowledge before they expired. The Calvarian Empire had built its strength by absorbing the best ideas from dozens of different species. The ship's design puzzled all the Calvarian officers. It had been built for war, that much was obvious. Every line and angle of the vessel screamed aggression and violence. Most civilized species built ships that could fight when necessary, but also served other purposes like exploration or trade. This vessel had been designed for only one thing: destroying other ships. Lieutenant Zalketh noticed something else strange about the mystery ship. The damage pattern did not make sense. Most battle damage came from ships firing at each other while moving in different directions. This created random hit patterns across the hull. But this ship's damage looked almost artistic, as if someone had carefully placed each burn mark and hole in exactly the right spot. The positioning of the vessel also troubled. The young officer ships that had been destroyed in battle usually drifted away from the battle site, pushed by the force of explosions and the momentum they had when the fighting ended. This ship sat motionless in space, as if it had never been moving at all. It was like finding a crashed ground vehicle sitting perfectly parked instead of wrapped around a tree commander. Vex-Tar dismissed these concerns as the worries of an inexperienced officer. The scans clearly showed no power, no weapons, and no defensive systems active. The ship was a hulk waiting to be salvaged. Nothing more. The alien life signs were probably the last survivors slowly dying in the cold darkness of their broken vessel. The 3 Calvarian ships moved into position around the mystery vessel like hunters surrounding wounded prey. Their weapon systems remained active, but pointed away from the ship to avoid accidentally damaging whatever valuable technology might be inside. Boarding teams prepared their equipment and checked their protective suits. Captain Mordak suggested they try to communicate with any survivors aboard the alien ship before boarding it. His translation computers might be able to establish basic communication, even with an unknown species. Sometimes living aliens were more valuable than their technology, because they could explain how their inventions worked. But Vex-Tar was eager to get aboard and start searching for valuable items. He had been passed over for promotion twice because other commanders had brought back better prizes from their missions. This strange warship could be his chance to finally advance in rank and gain the respect of his superiors. The mystery ship continued to float in space, giving no sign that anyone aboard was aware of the Calvarian fleet surrounding it. The life signs remained faint and steady, as if the creatures inside were unconscious or dying. The hull showed no movement, no lights, and no attempt at communication. As the boarding shuttles launched from the 3 Calvarian ships, Vex-Tar allowed himself to dream about the rewards this discovery would bring him. The Empire's scientists would study every piece of the alien technology. His name would be remembered as the commander who brought them their greatest prize. None of the Calvarians noticed the small changes beginning to occur deep within the mystery ship's hull. Systems that had appeared dead were quietly coming online one by one. Power flowed through carefully hidden conduits. Weapon systems ran silent diagnostic checks. Computer networks that had been dormant began processing information at incredible speeds. The trap was almost ready to spring. The 3 Calvarian boarding shuttles moved slowly toward the mystery ship, like cautious insects approaching a sleeping giant. Commander Vex-Tar watched from his command chair as his best salvage teams prepared to cut their way inside the alien vessel. The excitement on his bridge was easy to feel as officers whispered about what treasures they might find. Lieutenant Zal Keth continued scanning the strange ship, but his equipment gave him the same readings as before. The vessel showed no power signatures, no active weapons, and no signs that anyone aboard was aware of the approaching Calvarians. Yet something about the whole situation felt wrong to the young officer. Like a puzzle with missing pieces, the mystery ship was much larger than it had first appeared. As the boarding shuttles got closer, the true size became obvious. The vessel was almost twice as long as Vex-Tar's flagship and much thicker through the middle. It had been built like a fortress meant to take enormous punishment and keep fighting. The hull was covered in layers of armor plating that looked thick enough to stop the most powerful weapons. Captain Mordak's voice came over the communication system from his ship. "The Swift Blade Commander, I am getting a better look at the hull construction now. This ship was not built the same way we build our vessels. The metal appears to have been forged in sections and welded together rather than grown in fabrication tanks. The construction methods are crude, but incredibly strong." The alien ship's design became more puzzling the closer they looked. Every surface was covered in small details that served no obvious purpose. There were tiny sensor arrays hidden in armor joints, backup communication dishes, mounted in protected alcoves, and what looked like emergency repair systems built into the hull itself. The builders of this ship had planned for every possible disaster. Zalketh noticed that many of the apparent battle damage marks were actually cleverly disguised hatches and weapon ports. Someone had painted burn marks and blast holes over perfectly functional systems. The ship had been made to look more damaged than it really was. This discovery should have been reported immediately, but the young officer hesitated, unsure if his suspicions were correct. The boarding teams reached the alien ship's hull and began searching for the best place to cut their way inside. The ship had several obvious airlocks, but the Calvarians could not figure out how to operate the alien door controls. Instead, they decided to cut through what appeared to be a damaged section of the hull, where entry would be easier. As the cutting tools began to work on the alien, metal sparks flew in strange colors that the Calvarians had never seen before. The hull material was incredibly tough, requiring much more power than expected to cut through. Even with their best equipment, progress was slow. The metal seemed to fight back against every cut, as if it did not want to be opened. Meanwhile, on the bridge of Vextar's flagship, the scanning teams continued studying the mystery ship's construction. The more they learned, the more confused they became. The ship had been built using technologies that seemed both primitive and advanced at the same time. Some systems looked crude and simple, while others appeared more sophisticated than anything the Calvarian Empire had ever developed. The alien life signs inside the ship remained steady but faint. The creatures aboard showed no response to the cutting operation taking place on their hull. Either they were unconscious, or they simply did not care that their ship was being boarded. Both possibilities seemed strange to the Calvarians, who would have responded immediately to any threat to their vessels. Captain Mordak reported another discovery about the mystery ship commander. Our detailed scans show that this vessel has been designed with multiple backup systems for every critical function. There are 3 separate power plants, 4 different weapon control systems, and at least 6 independent life support networks. Most species build ships with some redundancy, but this level of preparation suggests a species that expects to take severe damage in combat. The ship's weapon systems were particularly interesting to the Calvarian officers. Even powered down and apparently non-functional, the weapons appeared to be of a completely unknown design. They were built into the hull in ways that made them almost impossible to target and destroy. The aliens who built this ship had learned hard lessons about space. Combat Lieutenant Zalketh finally decided to report his concerns about the ship's suspicious positioning and the disguised nature of some of the hull damage. He called Commander Vextar to his scanning station and showed him the readings that troubled him. "Sir, I believe this ship may not be as helpless as it appears. Many of these damage marks appear to be painted on, and the vessel's position in space is too perfect to be accidental." Vextar looked at the evidence but dismissed the young officer's concerns. The scans clearly showed no active power systems, and the life signs were too weak to indicate any immediate threat. The commander was too focused on the potential rewards of this discovery to worry about unlikely dangers. His boarding teams were already inside the alien ship and beginning their search. The boarding party reported that the interior of the mystery ship was just as strange as the exterior. The corridors were wider and taller than necessary for most known species, suggesting that the builders were either very large or wore bulky equipment. The walls were covered in symbols and markings. That might be a writing system, but could also be decorative patterns. The air inside the ship was still breathable for Calvarians, though it had a strange metallic taste that made the boarding team uncomfortable. The artificial gravity was still working despite the apparent lack of power, which puzzled the engineers. Every system they tested seemed to be functioning on backup power so minimal that their instruments could barely detect it. As the Calvarians moved deeper into the alien ship, they found evidence of the fierce battle that had apparently killed the vessel. The walls showed blast marks from energy weapons, and some corridors were blocked by debris from internal explosions. But despite all this damage, the ship's basic structure remained sound. The builders had designed their vessel to keep functioning even after taking tremendous punishment. The search teams began finding bodies of the alien crew scattered throughout the ship. The creatures were unlike anything in Calvarian databases. They appeared to be bipedal with only 4 limbs instead of the 6 that most intelligent species possessed. Their bodies were covered in some kind of protective clothing that might be uniforms or might be their natural skin. What struck the boarding teams as most unusual was the way these aliens had died. Many of them were found at their duty stations as if they had continued working until the very moment of death. Their hands were still on control panels and their eyes were still focused on display screens. This suggested a level of dedication and discipline that impressed even the hardened Calvarian soldiers. The mystery ship held many more secrets waiting to be discovered, but time was running short. The other vessels in Vextar's small fleet were getting nervous about staying in one place for too long. This part of space was known to be dangerous, with pirates and hostile alien species that might attack ships caught off guard. Unknown to the Calvarians deep within, the alien ship systems were coming online one by one. Power flowed through hidden conduits that had been designed to restart the ship without creating any detectable energy signatures. Weapons that had appeared destroyed were quietly running through. Their activation sequences, computer systems that controlled the ship's most deadly surprises, were counting down to the moment when the trap would spring. Captain Lee Dong-woo sat perfectly still in his command chair aboard the UNS Defiance, watching the alien boarding teams move through his ship on the security monitors. His crew had been playing dead for over 2 hours, maintaining complete silence. While the strange creatures explored their vessel, the human captain's face showed no emotion, but inside he felt both anger and excitement at what was about to happen. The plan had been simple, but dangerous. Let an alien scout fleet discover the Defiance, pretending to be a battle-damaged hulk, then spring a trap when the aliens got close enough. The human ship had been equipped with special systems designed to fool enemy sensors, making it appear powerless and nearly destroyed while actually maintaining full combat readiness. Lieutenant Park. So Young monitored the alien movements from her position at the tactical station. She whispered into her headset, keeping her voice so low that even the ship's internal sensors could barely pick it up. Captain, the boarding teams have reached Deck 7. They are moving toward the main engineering section exactly as we predicted. Their 3 ships are maintaining position around us with weapons powered down. The aliens exploring the ship were clearly intelligent and cautious, but they had no idea what they were really dealing with. They moved through the corridors like scavengers, picking through the remains of someone else's battle, completely unaware that they were walking through a carefully prepared killing ground. The Defiance had been designed from the beginning to be the perfect trap chief engineer. Kim Tae-ho was hidden in a maintenance shaft near the main engineering room, watching the alien boarding team through a small observation port. The creatures were taller than humans, with 4 arms and strange skin that seemed to change color slightly as they moved. They carried scanning equipment and cutting tools, but their weapons remained holstered. They clearly thought the ship was harmless. The human crew had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Every system on the ship had been modified to appear non-functional while actually being ready for immediate activation. The hull damage was fake, created by carefully applied paint and removable panels. The life support readings were artificially weakened and the power signatures were completely masked by revolutionary new technology. Admiral Yoon Ji-hai's voice came through the ship's hidden communication system. From the human command station 50 light-years away, all stations, this is Admiral Yoon. The trap is authorized. You are cleared to show these aliens what humanity is capable of. Make sure they understand. They have made a serious mistake. Captain. Lee smiled grimly and activated his command console for the first time in hours. Systems throughout the ship began coming online in a carefully orchestrated sequence designed for maximum psychological impact on the alien intruders. First, the lights came on, revealing that the ship was very much alive. Then artificial gravity increased to normal levels, making it clear that all primary systems were functional. The alien boarding team stopped moving immediately as they realized something was very wrong. Their communication devices erupted with panicked voices as their ships outside detected the sudden power surge from what had appeared to be a dead hulk. The Calvarian officers scrambled to their battle stations, but they were already too late to avoid the trap. Lieutenant Park. So Young activated the ship's external weapon systems and the Defiance's true nature was revealed. The fake battle damage disappeared as armored panels slid away to reveal rows of missile tubes, energy cannons, and defensive systems. The ship that had looked like a floating wreck transformed into a sleek predator, bristling with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The 3 Calvarian ships found themselves facing something they had never encountered before, a vessel that had been specifically designed to appear helpless, while actually being one of the most dangerous warships ever built. The humans had learned from centuries of warfare that the best way to win a fight was to make the enemy think there would be no fight at all. Commander Vextar's voice came over the alien communication frequencies, demanding to know what was happening. His boarding teams reported that the dead ship was very much alive and that they were trapped inside with an unknown number of hostile aliens. The Calvarian commander's excitement had turned to fear as he realized his easy salvage operation had become a potential disaster. Captain Lee activated the ship's translation systems and spoke directly to the alien commander. "This is Captain Lee Dong-Woo of the United Nations Space Command vessel. Defiance. You have just made the mistake of attacking a human warship. Your people are now prisoners, and your ships are surrounded. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." The aliens had never heard of humans before, and their computers contained no information about this species. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. These creatures were not helpless, survivors waiting to be rescued. They were warriors who had laid a trap, and the Calvarians had walked right into it. Vextar tried to maintain his composure as he responded to the human captain. "We are explorers from the Calvarian Empire. We meant no harm to your vessel. We thought you needed assistance. Your ship appeared to be damaged and powerless. We were attempting a rescue operation, not an attack." Captain Lee's laugh was cold and humorless. "Your rescue operation involved cutting through our hull with industrial tools and sending armed teams to search our ship. Those are not the actions of beings offering assistance. You are scavengers looking for technology to steal, and you chose the wrong target." The human ship's sensors were far more advanced than anything the Calvarians possessed, and had been watching the alien fleet from the moment they appeared in the system. The humans knew exactly what the aliens had planned and had prepared accordingly. The Defiance's crew had studied the alien tactics and technology for hours while pretending to be unconscious. Lieutenant Park reported that the alien ships were trying to power up their weapons and defensive systems, but human jamming technology was interfering with their efforts. The Calvarians found their own equipment working against them as human electronic warfare systems took control of their ship's computers. Chief Engineer Kim emerged from his hiding place and confronted the alien boarding team in the engineering section. The creatures were clearly shocked to discover that the humans had been aware of their presence all along. They had expected to find dying aliens or empty rooms, not a fully operational crew that had been watching their every move. The aliens realized they were facing something unprecedented in their experience. Most species they encountered either fought openly or surrendered when outmatched. These humans had chosen a third option. They had pretended to be defeated while actually preparing for victory. The psychological impact of this deception was devastating to the Calvarian crews. Admiral Yoon's voice came through the communication system again, addressed to both human and alien forces. "This is your introduction to humanity. We do not surrender. We do not beg for mercy, and we do not forgive attacks on our people. You have just learned that humans are not like other species, and this lesson will stay with you for the rest of your lives." The first contact between humans and Calvarians had begun not with diplomacy or trade, but with deception and the promise of violence. The aliens were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their absolute refusal to be victims. "Lieutenant Park." So Young's hands moved across her control panels like a pianist performing a deadly symphony as she prepared to show the Calvarian fleet what human tactical thinking could accomplish. The three alien ships hung in space around the Defiance like wolves surrounding what they thought was wounded prey. But the roles were about to be reversed in the most spectacular way possible. The lead Calvarian ship, commanded by Vextar, was the largest and most heavily armed, but it had been designed for straightforward combat between fleets that followed predictable patterns. Human warfare had evolved through centuries of fighting against other humans who never followed predictable patterns. This experience had taught humanity lessons that no other species had learned. Park activated the Defiance's movement systems, and the human ship began to dance. The vessel that had appeared dead and motionless suddenly burst into motion with acceleration that should have been impossible for something so heavily armored. The ship spun and twisted through space in patterns that defied the aliens' understanding of physics and tactics. The Calvarian ships tried to track the human vessel with their weapons, but Park was already 3 moves ahead of them. She used the Defiance's advanced maneuvering systems to create gravitational distortions that bent the alien targeting sensors, making it impossible for them to get a weapons lock. The human ship seemed to flicker in and out of existence as it moved. Captain Lee watched the tactical display with professional satisfaction. as his tactical officer executed maneuvers that would have been considered impossible by alien standards. Park had trained for years to pilot the Defiance, and she understood the ship's capabilities better than anyone alive. Her movements were not random, but followed a complex pattern designed to confuse and intimidate the enemy. The first Calvarian ship tried to compensate for the human ship's movements by firing a spread of energy bolts across the area where they predicted the Defiance would be. Park saw the attack coming long before the aliens fired and had already moved the ship to a position where their weapons could not reach the alien energy. Bolts struck empty space while the human ship appeared behind them. Commander Vextar watched in growing horror as his 3 ships were outmaneuvered by a single enemy vessel that should have been easy to destroy. The human ship moved like it was, alive, dancing through space in ways that violated everything the Calvarians knew about space combat. Their computers could not predict where the enemy would be next, because the human pilot was not following any logical pattern. The second Calvarian ship tried a different approach, launching guided missiles that should have been able to track the human vessel, regardless of its maneuvers. But Park had anticipated this tactic as well. She used the Defiance's point defense systems to create a wall of energy that destroyed the incoming missiles while simultaneously launching a counterattack that disabled the alien ship's weapon systems. The display of human tactical ability continued as Park demonstrated move after move that left the aliens stunned and confused. She used the gravitational fields of nearby asteroids to slingshot the Defiance around obstacles, creating attack angles that should have been impossible. The human ship attacked from above and below and from directions the aliens had not even known existed. Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho contributed to the demonstration by showing the aliens what human engineering ingenuity could accomplish in real time. When the third Calvarian ship tried to use an electromagnetic pulse to disable the Defiance's systems, Kim rerouted power through backup circuits that had been hidden throughout the ship. The alien attack actually made the human ship stronger by activating emergency systems that doubled its power output. The aliens found themselves facing an opponent that treated space combat like an art form, rather than a simple exchange of weapons fire. Every move the human ship made served multiple purposes, confusing enemy sensors while positioning for the next attack and gathering intelligence about alien capabilities. The Defiance seemed to be in 6 places at once while actually being exactly where it needed to be. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the communication system, calm and professional as she narrated her own actions for the benefit of the alien listeners. This is what we call a basic defensive maneuver. You will notice that your weapons cannot track a target that refuses to follow predictable flight patterns. Human pilots train for years to think in 3 dimensions while most species limit themselves to flat tactical thinking. The psychological impact on the Calvarian crews was devastating. They had expected an easy victory against a damaged ship, but instead found themselves completely outclassed by tactics they could not understand or counter. Their advanced technology meant nothing when faced with an opponent who rewrote the rules of engagement in real time. Commander Vextar tried to order his ships to retreat, but found that the human vessel had positioned itself to cut off all escape routes. Park had herded the 3 alien ships into a formation that gave them no room to maneuver, while leaving the Defiance free to attack from any angle. The aliens were trapped in a cage made of their own tactical limitations. The demonstration reached its peak when Park executed a maneuver that became legendary in human military history. She used the Defiance's engines to create an artificial gravity well that pulled all 3 alien ships toward each other, while the human ship used the same gravitational effect to accelerate away from the tangle. The aliens found themselves on collision courses with each other, while the humans watched from a safe distance. Captain Lee finally spoke to the alien commander, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had just proven his superiority. Your ships are now disabled, and your crews are alive only because we choose to let them live. This has been a demonstration of human tactical ability. You have seen what one ship with 1 crew can accomplish against 3 vessels with superior numbers and technology. The alien crews sat in stunned silence as they realized the full extent of their defeat. They had not just lost a battle. They had been given a lesson in warfare by a species that treated combat like a science. The humans had not simply outfought them. They had outthought them at every turn, showing abilities that seemed almost supernatural. Admiral, Yoon's voice came over the communication system once again. This demonstration was conducted using standard human tactics, taught to every officer in our space forces. The ship you have encountered is not our most advanced vessel, and the crew you have faced is not our most elite unit. What you have witnessed represents the minimum level of competence we expect from our people. The message was clear to the aliens. Humanity possessed military capabilities that far exceeded anything in Calvarian experience, and this had been just a small sample of what humans could do when challenged. The display had been designed not just to defeat the alien ships, but to plant seeds of doubt and fear that would grow in alien minds for years to come. The first demonstration of human tactical superiority was complete, but the lesson was just beginning. The aliens were about to learn that defeating human ships in battle was only the beginning of their problems. Dealing with human psychology and determination would prove to be an entirely different and much more difficult challenge. Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho emerged from the maintenance tunnels of the UNS Defiance like a ghost, materializing from the ship's mechanical heart. His uniform was stained with grease and coolant from the hours he had spent crawling through spaces, barely large enough for a human body. But his eyes blazed with the satisfaction of an engineer who had just solved an impossible problem in the most elegant way possible. The Calvarian boarding team in the engineering section had been watching their fleet's humiliation on portable screens connected to their ship's communication systems. They saw their 3 vessels outmaneuvered and disabled by a single human ship using tactics that defied all logical understanding. Now they faced the engineer, who had made much of that victory possible. Kim walked calmly toward the alien intruders who raised their weapons uncertainly. They had come aboard expecting to find dying survivors or valuable salvage. Instead, they had discovered a fully operational, human warship with a crew that had been playing an elaborate game of deception. The psychological impact of this realization had left them confused and demoralized. "Do not point those weapons at me," Kim said in accented but clear Calvarian language that he had learned from the ship's computer during the long hours of preparation. "Your ships are disabled, your crews are trapped, and you are guests aboard a human vessel. Whether you remain as prisoners or leave as friends depends entirely on how you behave in the next few minutes." The lead Calvarian, a seasoned soldier named Tech Morth, lowered his weapon slightly but kept it ready. "This was clearly a trap from the beginning," he said. "Your ship was never damaged and your crew was never in danger. You deceived us into believing you were helpless victims when you were actually predators waiting for prey." Kim smiled and nodded his head in acknowledgement. "That is correct. We have been watching your people's activities in this sector for several months. Your pattern of attacking damaged ships and stealing technology made you predictable. We simply gave you what appeared to be an irresistible target and waited for you to take the bait." The human engineer gestured toward the engineering displays that showed the current status of all systems aboard the Defiance. "Everything you see here was designed and built by human hands using human knowledge and human ingenuity. We did not steal this technology from other species or inherit it from ancient civilizations. We created it through centuries of innovation driven by necessity tech." Morth and his team stared at the engineering displays in growing amazement. The technology was unlike anything in their experience, combining crude, mechanical systems with sophisticated computer controls in ways that should not have worked but clearly did. The humans had approached engineering problems from completely different angles than any known species. "Your ship's power systems make no sense to our understanding," Kim continued. "They should not be able to generate the energy levels we have detected, and they should not be able to restart from a completely dead state the way they did. Yet clearly they work. How is this possible?" Kim's expression became serious as he prepared to give the aliens a lesson in human engineering philosophy. "We design our machines to work under the worst possible conditions," he explained. "Most species build systems that function well when everything goes according to plan. Humans build systems that continue functioning when everything goes wrong." The engineer led the aliens to a massive device that hummed with barely contained energy. "This is our main power plant," he said. "It was designed by engineers who assumed it would be damaged in battle, have half its components destroyed, and still need to provide full power to weapons and life support systems. Every critical system has at least 3 backups, and every backup has been tested under combat conditions. The Calvarian soldiers examined the human engineering with growing respect. The design philosophy was completely different from their own approach. Their people built elegant systems that worked efficiently under normal conditions. The humans had built crude systems that worked reliably under any conditions. The difference was like comparing a precision instrument to a sledgehammer. But this difference in engineering philosophy extended far beyond simple mechanical systems. Kim showed the aliens how human computer networks were designed to function, even when most of their components were destroyed. Human software could adapt and improvise in ways that alien programs could not imagine. The machines seemed to have inherited their creators' stubborn refusal to give up. The most impressive demonstration came when Kim showed the aliens how he had countered their electromagnetic pulse attack in real time. When the Calvarian flagship had tried to disable the Defiance with an EMP burst, Kim had rerouted the ship's power through the water recycling system, creating a feedback loop that not only protected the human ship, but sent a devastating surge back to the attackers. That should have been impossible, Tekmorth said, staring at the jury-rigged connections that had saved the human ship and doomed his own water recycling systems are not designed to carry that kind of power load. The feedback should have destroyed your entire ship. Kim laughed and patted the alien soldier on one of his 4 shoulders. That is exactly what our enemies always think, he said. Human engineering is based on the principle that any system can be modified to serve any purpose if you are creative enough and desperate enough. We do not accept the word impossible in our vocabulary. The aliens were beginning to understand that they had encountered something unprecedented in their exploration of the galaxy. Most species they met were either primitive or had developed along predictable technological paths. The humans had developed in isolation, creating solutions to problems that other species had never thought to consider. The human engineer continued his explanation, showing how every system aboard the Defiance had been designed with multiple uses in mind. Life support could be converted to chemical weapons production. Navigation systems could be repurposed as targeting computers. Even the food preparation units could be modified to synthesize explosive compounds in emergency situations. Your species thinks differently than ours, Tekmorth observed with growing unease. You prepare for wars that have not been fought yet and problems that may never occur. This level of paranoia and preparation suggests a very dangerous evolutionary background. Kim's smile faded as he considered the alien's words. You are beginning to understand, he said quietly. Humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, and eventually each other. Learned very early that survival required constant vigilance, constant innovation, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Calvarian soldiers exchanged worried glances as they realized the full implications of what they were hearing. They had encountered a species that had been shaped by millions of years of warfare and struggle. Every human they met would carry the genetic memory of countless battles fought and won against impossible odds. Kim led them to one final display that showed the true scope of human preparation. The Defiance was just one of thousands of human ships scattered throughout the galaxy, each one crewed by beings who had spent their entire lives preparing for combat against unknown enemies. The humans had not come to the stars seeking conquest or glory. They had come because staying in one place was too dangerous. The revelation was complete. The aliens now understood that they had not simply encountered a new species with advanced technology. They had discovered a race of beings who treated warfare as a natural state and peace as a temporary condition between conflicts. The psychological impact of this knowledge would affect every decision the Calvarians made for generations to come. Chief Engineer Kim watched the alien soldiers absorb this information and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride in what humanity had accomplished, and sadness for what they had been forced to become. The universe was a dangerous place, but humans had proven they could be even more dangerous when threatened. Admiral Yoon Ji-hai's image appeared on every screen throughout the Calvarian fleet, her face calm and composed as she prepared to deliver words that would change the course of galactic history. The human admiral had been chosen for this moment. not because of her military victories but because of her ability to speak with absolute authority about humanity's place in the universe. Commander Vex-Tar and his officers watched from their disabled ships as the human admiral began to speak. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across space with the weight of 10,000 years of human warfare behind every word. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating to the alien crews who had never encountered anything like it. "I am Admiral Yoonji Hae of the United Nations Space Command," she began, "and I speak for all of humanity when I tell you that your education begins now. You came to this system believing you had found easy prey, a damaged ship filled with dying aliens whose technology you could steal. This belief has cost you 3 ships and the respect of your crews." The Admiral's words were translated into perfect Calvarian by computers that had analyzed the alien language during the long deception that preceded this moment. Every nuance and emphasis was preserved, ensuring that the aliens understood not just the meaning of her words, but the emotions behind them. "You have just encountered a single human vessel operating alone in deep space," she continued. "The crew you have met represent standard training and equipment for our space forces. They are not elite soldiers or specially chosen warriors. They are ordinary humans doing their assigned duties. The ship they operate was built using common human technology and tactics." The implications of this statement struck the Calvarian officers like physical blows. If this was what ordinary humans could accomplish, what were their elite forces capable of? The technology they had witnessed was described as common, suggesting that far more advanced systems existed elsewhere in human space. "Behind me stand 10,000 ships exactly like this one." Admiral Yoon continued, "each one crewed by beings who have spent their entire lives preparing for exactly this type of encounter. We have been watching your empire for months, studying your tactics, learning your weaknesses, and preparing responses to every possible threat you might pose to human interests." The silence that followed this revelation was complete. No Calvarian officer spoke, moved, or even seemed to breathe as they absorbed the full scope of what they had discovered. They had stumbled into contact with a species that possessed overwhelming military superiority and had been secretly observing them for an extended period. "Your people have built an empire by scavenging technology from species you considered inferior." Admiral Yoon's voice became colder as she continued. "This strategy has worked because you have never encountered a species that views warfare as we do. Humans do not build ships to explore or trade or establish peaceful colonies. We build ships to destroy other ships, and we are very good at it." The psychological warfare continued as Admiral Yoon explained humanity's approach to galactic relations. "We have studied 17 different species in this sector of space and have developed detailed plans for defeating each of them militarily if necessary. We do not seek conquest or domination, but we will not tolerate threats to human colonies or trade routes." Commander Vex-Tar found his voice long enough to ask a single question. "Admiral, what do you want from us? We acknowledge your superiority and will withdraw from this system immediately, if that is your wish. We meant no harm to your people and will avoid all contact with human vessels in the future." The human admiral's expression remained unchanged as she considered the alien commander's words. "What I want," she said, "is for you to understand exactly what you have discovered here today. You have encountered humanity, and that encounter will change how your species views its place in the universe forever. The lesson you have learned today will spread throughout your empire." Admiral Yoon continued, "Your crews will tell stories of the human ship that deceived an entire fleet. Your officers will report that they encountered a species with tactical abilities beyond their understanding. Your leaders will receive intelligence reports describing weapons and technology that exceed anything in Calvarian science, but the most important message you will carry back to your people